Hi everyone, it's Alyssa and welcome to Always Cinema Chic. So today I got dressed up to watch the movie Black Box. And so I chose this movie because it was the first one requested from the previous video that I did about horror movies that are currently streaming that I have not yet seen. And so Black Box is actually on Amazon Prime and it's part of a larger picture with this kind of conceptual thing called Welcome to the Blumhouse, which are 4 different films that are tied together by this idea of family. The movies don't really go together in any way. They're just really about family. That's how they go together. But they're marketed as horror films. And I feel like that is a mistake because at this point, I've seen 3 out of the 4 films. So I've seen Evil Eye, The Lie, Black Box, and I've yet to see Nocturnal. But with that said, having seen the 3 movies, none of these movies really hit me at first as straight up horror movies. There were some horrific things that happened, but I think it's a real stretch to call these horror movies. So Black Box, for instance, is so much more science fiction. It's so much more of a thriller and suspense than ever calling it horror. I think there's, maybe one character that makes it a little bit scary. But once again, that is not the primary genre. And I've been looking at the reviews these movies have been getting, and they haven't been the best reviews, although Black Box is by far the highest rated. And I can attest this out of the 3 movies I saw, Black Box was by far the best movie. It was the most entertaining. It had the most original idea, even though the idea is definitely derived from other stories, but it was still an intriguing premise. And I thought it worked pretty well. So with that said, I would say this rates at the top, but none of the 4 have been that spectacular of movies in the first place. They definitely seem more like low budget, but even beyond low budget, not Black Box so much, but I felt that Evil Eye almost looked like a TV movie that I would have found on Lifetime or something like that. And I'm not saying the story idea was bad, that the premise was bad on these movies. It's just that almost even the quality of the camera was a lot lesser. So it becomes a little bit distracting, I think, because you're expecting a movie and you're actually seeing sort of a lower quality. But I want to first give my overall reaction to this movie, which is, fairly positive. I thought this was entertaining. I thought you did connect to certain characters, especially the main character, Nolan. He was by far the most likable in the film. And so it takes on these kind of sci-fi themes, very reminiscent of, say, Memento, very reminiscent of even Inception, which I haven't seen anyone compare this to Inception, but you do have a whole sequence where you're going into the main character's subconscious and you go to all of these different levels and parts of his brain. And so it did remind me very much of a Chris Nolan movie. And, I don't think it's an accident that the main character is named Nolan. I think that is absolutely a nod to Christopher Nolan because it really is taken from his sort of ideas and his movie premises. It also kind of feels like a long episode of Twilight Zone or a long episode of Black Mirror. So it's really going along that sort of vein. So there are a couple of scares, but it's definitely more science fiction. So the movie is about the single father, Nolan. He's been in an accident and he doesn't have his kind of long-term memory. He has to rely on his daughter to help him out, to remind him of where he has to go, and say if it's like a job interview, she has to make sure that he is 100% prepared. And so it's very much a family-driven movie and very much driven by love and trying to get the family back together. But Nolan's brother, who is a doctor, lets him know that there's a study in the hospital and that it's to help people who've lost their memory. And basically, they go in through hypnosis and they go into the subconscious and they try to extract those memories so that it's not so blurry and the person can remember what happened in his or her past. So he at first doesn't want to be in the study, but of course he does in the long term get there. And the doctor who's in charge of the study is Lillian, played by Phylicia Rashad. And it was fun to definitely definitely be able to see her again. I'm so used to, because I go to Disney World all the time, I'm so used to seeing her in the dinosaur ride that it was nice to actually see her acting in a movie again. So I'm going to go over what I think really worked in the movie, first of all. So to me, the number one thing was the acting. I think the acting in this film was definitely a step above other a step above the acting I've seen in other movies from this Welcome to the Blumhouse series. And so Mamadou Ache, who plays Nolan, I've only ever seen him in, it was a Brie Larson movie on Netflix. It was called Unicorn Store. And what's so funny is that I I remember him being the best part of that movie. So to be able to see that he was the actor in this movie got me really excited because he has such a great depth to him. He's an incredibly authentic and open actor, and he definitely brought this to this role when he was playing Nolan as well. He has quite a lot of emotional depth. He is so confused because he knows that he doesn't feel like himself, and he notices things around the house that don't appear to be within his character. So, for example, he can see that he punched a hole in the wall, but yet his brother is telling him that he's the most calm, non-violent man on the planet. And so all of these things just don't add up, and he's on this quest to find his identity. And so he took the role very seriously. It's very genuine, it's very authentic. I also felt that the girl who plays his daughter, Amanda Christina, she plays Ava, she was so good in this role because she is almost taking on the role of an adult because she's in charge of her father and she doesn't want him to lose custody. The school is threatening to call child protective services. So she really has to be an adult in this movie, but still be a kid and still really love her father, but also be scared that he's not exactly acting like himself. And so there were so many different layers with the acting, and I was all around just impressed with the acting. I also thought the overall premise was a real positive to the story. And while it is most definitely reminiscent of a Chris Nolan or a Jonathan Nolan story, it still had its own little twist. I thought the twist in the film was good. That's one of the things where I would say this is what was done pretty well, but could have potentially been done better. So I thought the twist in the film was a good idea, but I didn't think they really developed it enough. Everything happened, in my opinion, a little bit quickly and a little bit rushed at the end. And so certain characters were definitely developed more than others. And what I liked is that the characters in the film, there was no real villain. You could see the story from every different point of view, but I think they could have done a better job by kind of elongating certain character stories so that you really don't see anyone as a villain, but certain characters get a little bit of a rushed story, which I felt like that part could have been a little bit better. But another thing that kind of worked was the fact that it does pose these sort of philosophical questions and the idea of who am I, and not being able to recognize yourself or recognize the person that you are. It also creates a lot of ethical questions connected to science. And so, well, I'm teaching Frankenstein right now. So, of course, I saw that there was definitely a little bit of a connection to Frankenstein, but I still believe, even if I wasn't teaching it, I would see that anyway. But, you know, there were things that I felt could have been done better. And so, for me personally, this looked a little bit low budget, and I don't want to say that the special effects were bad because they could have they didn't need the money for the special effects necessarily, but at the same time, a lot of the shots were boring. So they used a lot of medium shots, a lot of medium close-ups. So instead of going for maybe a more interesting, angle, or really thinking about the shot composition and what that means with the characters, that's something that doesn't cost extra money unless it's a really complicated shot. But it would have been something that could have elevated the film, maybe taking the color palette into consideration a little bit more. When you go into the subconscious of Nolan, I wanted it to look really stylized, and it wasn't. So there's only one really scary character. He's called the Backwards Man, and he's actually this guy, Troy James, who could, move his body in very odd and it looks very painful ways. And that was the one image that was truly scary. You get a lot of blurred faces, but the blurred faces are because he can't remember who the people are. And so it didn't really have a distinct style. And in this way, I was thinking of movies like, say, Get Out or Insidious, where you're going into these kind of dream states. And within the dream states, it's a lot more stylized and it's a very specific perspective from the director. And it helps us to really get into that character's mind. And we're just kind of missing that here. And I don't know if it was because of the money or something else, but it was something that I did miss within the film because I did think if they had that more stylization, especially in not the dream sequences, but going into his subconscious, that would have made this film and it would have made it more scary. You could have had a lot more of these kind of uncanny images that would be kind of frightening and they would stick with you. But there were no real images that scared me so much in this movie. And I think that would have taken this to the next level. I want to end by talking about the fact that when I actually looked at reviews for this because I had heard that this movie was a social commentary, but then I had read, oh no, it's not. And it's definitely not a social commentary. And I had read in one of the reviews that was a negative to the film. And I just wanted to bring up that this is just my opinion, and you may totally disagree with it, but I don't think the movie with an all-Black cast needs to be a social commentary. I felt like the whole purpose of the film was that it was a very universal human experience, and this person not being able to know his own identity or know his own self and the kind of psychological ramifications of that. And so in this particular story, in this case, I don't think it needs to be about social justice because that wasn't the intention of the director. Now, if it's the intention of the director, like say like a Get Out, and this movie was oddly getting compared a lot to Get Out, and the only thing that you really can compare it to are that both films have hypnosis. That's really the only thing that's the same thing between the two movies. But I didn't necessarily think that was a fair comparison because I didn't think that that's the intention of Black Box. I think the intention of Black Box is to be a universal story about identity and family and what one would do to keep one's family together. So that's it. I would definitely recommend this film. This isn't, the best movie you're going to see, but I would put it in the B category. This also isn't a movie you need to see before Halloween. So since we're only, a couple of days away from Halloween, right now I would just watch, Halloween, Sleepy Hollow, those kinds of movies that really make you feel like you are in the season, and then maybe hold off and watch this movie in November. But it's definitely a good thing to watch if you don't know what to watch and you're just going through Amazon Prime. So I hope that everyone has a great day. If you haven't subscribed and you like the channel, please do. Please like the video as well, because that definitely helps out. And I will see all of you guys later. Okay, bye.